Normally, these one-on-one interviews are kind of a look into the person that I'm interviewing.
Okay.
JVK on air has sort of become a documentation of my life through different people that I know. And with
Okay.
you being my radio professor, you've seen me grow up more than most people have. So I was going to talk about kind of your upbringing, and then talk about our relationship too along the way. So.
Very good. All right.
All right. First of all, I don't even know how many of these interviews you grant, Scott. Like, is this your first podcast?
Uh, it might be actually, now that I think
Okay.
about
Wow.
it. I've done a lot of interviews over the years with television reporters and newspaper reporters and radio reporters, and I have been a guest on some talk shows and things of that nature. But this may be my first guest spot on a podcast. So, and
Good.
as you know, because you're on the other side of the microphone on this one, those of us who were classically trained to go into radio, we're a little more comfortable asking the questions than we are answering them. So
Yeah.
be kind. Be kind.
I'll go easy on you. No problem. That's one thing that we've joked about in our private conversations is like, it seems like folks they have a podcast and a driver's license comes along with the driver's license. I mean, has
Yeah, my
pod,
uh, my
yeah,
my my old saying is, if you've got an iPhone in the garage, you think you can have your own podcast. So yeah, absolutely.
has podcasting done more good or bad to the industry, in your opinion?
Uh Honestly, I think the reviews are mixed at this point. And if by the industry you mean radio or broadcasting,
Right. Yeah.
I think it's a very good question, Jimmy. And I think we are not anywhere where we need to be yet when it comes to the potential of the podcasting landscape. Um, I think radio stations, and this plays out if you look at the top podcasters in terms of revenue, the top podcasters in terms of subscribers and downloads and so on,
Mhm.
are traditional broadcast outlets. Because as radio professionals, we know how to use the audio medium to reach people. We know how to tell stories. We know how to put together a quality product. Um, the question is, how do you then monetize that? How do you how do you um, deliver an audience for an advertiser? I know that Bob Pittman, who is the leader of iHeartRadio, once said at a conference I was at, he said, really what we do in radio is we uh, we aggregate an audience,
Right.
and then we build a relationship with that audience, and then we rent it to our advertisers. And I think that podcasting does the same thing, and we in broadcasting are uniquely um, qualified because of all the years of doing radio to do really good podcasts. And we understand an audience, we understand how to reach that audience, we understand how to sell advertising. Now, you mentioned good or bad. Okay. I think that, I joke with my wife, who has her master's degree in library science. I said, if we could just take the internet and we could apply the good old fashioned Dewey Decimal System, I could actually find something I'm looking for. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the problem with the internet. The same problem with the podcasting sphere is, the podcast you want to listen to is out there, but how do you find it? How do you work through
Mhm.
the guys and gals that are trying to do this with an iPhone in a garage and didn't have a script, didn't have an idea, and just started talking and thinks that they're a lot more interesting than they really are?
Mhm.
So from that standpoint, um, I'm curious as to whether podcasting will ever reach its potential, because there's just so much out there that's not good.
Mhm.
But you
Okay.
mentioned, your question was the good, the bad. There are some really good podcasts out there. And from that standpoint, I think that if you can find what you're looking for, it can deliver great information, entertainment, knowledge, even some wisdom. So I think podcasting still has great potential, but we've got to find a way to cut through all the garbage, and then we've got to find a way to make money. I remember when iHeart bought HowStuffWorks.com, their podcasting branch. Somebody asked the question of the iHeart leader, whose name escapes me, that was leading that effort, and they said, "Well, but people don't like that; they're not used to advertising in podcasts." And his response, he didn't miss a beat. He just said, "They'll learn to put up with advertising, because if we're going to deliver great podcasts, somebody got to make money off this." So, from that standpoint, a long answer to your question, but I think we think podcasting is just an everyday thing. We're still very much in the infancy of this medium, and I think it has great potential, and I think there's some great stuff out there, but we've got to find a way to cut through the clutter. We've got to find a way to deliver audiences for advertisers so we can make money.
Well, and I spent 7 semesters with you in applied radio. One of my favorite classes during my time at UIndy. What made you?
I was there 26 years. It was one of my favorite too, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Love teaching that class.
What made you want to become a teacher?
I didn't.
Did you learn more from your students along the way? I bet that's one of those lessons.
No, just a quick story, kind of an origin story. My parents were both teachers.
Okay.
And so growing up as a rebellious only child, the one thing I said was, I will never become a teacher. As I think I told you and have told students over the years, be careful what you say you will never do in life, because you'll probably wind up doing that. You really will. But I wanted to be a broadcaster. I wanted to be a broadcast journalist. I wanted to be a sportscaster. And I did those things. And I played that game, I think, at a very high level. I had a lot of wonderful experiences. And then the opportunity came along for me to move. I was looking for a career change. I was in my mid-20s. And I had just gotten married, and I figured out very quickly that you can't work 60, 80-hour weeks and be gone every night calling games if you want to be a good husband. And if I wanted my marriage to be a good marriage, I was going to have to make some changes. So the opportunity came for me to go to the University of Indianapolis. And I originally, before I even found broadcasting, wanted to be a computer design engineer. I love technology. And so I'd always kind of dabbled in engineering. Even when I was in news, I was always the guy that when an affiliate station had a technical problem, I was on the front lines of helping them fix their satellite receiver or whatever. So I went to the university as their director of engineering, but went there to do radio. I really never planned to teach. That was not why I went there. I went there to do public radio.
Mm-hmm.
And then they had a need for someone to teach a class that at the time was called sports broadcasting. And I taught it poorly. I think I've apologized to every student I had that first semester with, I knew sports broadcasting, but I had no idea how to teach. And there were some wonderful colleagues who were willing to let me sit in their classes and ask them questions. And how do you grade? How do you do this? Because I didn't know. I was a broadcast journalist and sportscaster. And, once I started connecting with the students, I realized that the profession that I love, journalism, the industry that I just love, broadcasting, I could probably make more of a difference and add more value by helping the next generation of broadcasters learn what they needed to learn and launch their careers than I could as doing it myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm so blessed in that the second act of my career, I got to help young people find their career paths and make sure they were qualified so they can successfully launch their careers. So no, I really didn't want to teach. I just kind of fell into it, and looking back on it, I'm very blessed.
One of the lessons that the faculty had you teach us as incoming freshmen was your time management lecture, which I still refer to time and again. What are your suggestions for managing time better for folks?
I have a couple. And I got to tell you, in my semi-retirement, I'm learning all over again how to do that. Because, as you know, I'm sure you had the experience when I was a faculty member and a general manager that, you'd ask me a question. Hey, you got a minute? No, I don't. Walk with me. Okay. And we would have that conversation on the way to where I was going next, because that's what I had time to do. In my semi-retirement, now I've allegedly got all this time. It just doesn't feel that way. Okay. Yeah. So I went from being overscheduled to being way underscheduled. But my tips are very simple for those who are maybe struggling with time management. First of all, you got to take an inventory of what time you have. And I know you probably remember the exercise we did where I said, you're obviously sleeping 8 hours a night. So write that down, multiply that by 7, 56 hours a week. You're obviously taking an hour to eat lunch, an hour to eat breakfast, an hour to eat dinner, put down another 21 hours a week. And students just look at me like you're crazy. I'm taking 3 minutes to eat a granola bar. We're calling that lunch, and I'm getting 4 hours of sleep every night. And after we add up all the things by taking this outrageous perfect life, and you realize you still got 40 hours left over, and they're like, that can't be true. And I'm like, well, I know you don't do math well, you're communication students, but it's true. So the first thing is you got to take an inventory of where your time's going. And in no way, shape, or form, Jimmy, did I ever tell students that these should be your priorities.
Right.
You have to determine that yourself as to what do you really, really want to do with your life in terms of your time management. So if playing games, online gaming is a thing for you, and you want to play 2 hours a day, then that's fine. Block it out in your calendar and dedicate 2 hours, but don't go to 3 or 4 or 5. Don't let emails pop up on your screen every time they come in, or you're going to get interrupted in what you're doing. But if, watching Monday Night Football is a thing for you, block out that time and make sure you get your studying done at other times so you can watch Monday Night Football. So a lot of it comes to scheduling, live by your calendar, and realize that wasting a little time is not a bad thing. Wasting a lot of time can lead to severe consequences, and you got to get around that. So it's really, the tips are pretty simple. Have a calendar, live by your calendar, put your priorities into your calendar. And if you don't feel like you have time, then you have to do what I call the time log, where you just write down every day what you did and realize, holy cow, I spent 4 hours today on TikTok. All right. If that wasn't on your calendar, then we got to find a way that you're only going to spend an hour on TikTok or something like that. I think it's very important that we taught that to college students, though, Jimmy, because you come out of high school where you're so scheduled from 7, 8 in the morning, whenever school starts, till 3 in the afternoon. Then you got practice or whatever the case may be, or a job after work, that type of thing. In college, you may have a day or two here or there where you don't have classes at all. And all of a sudden that day becomes that Tuesday or Thursday you don't have classes becomes a time suck. And at the end of the day, you wonder, why am I behind? I had a whole day. What happened to that day? So it was very important for us to teach time management to freshmen.
Have you seen the movie Private Parts?
With Howard Stern. Yes.
Okay.
It's been a while, but yes.
There's a scene in there at Boston University at his college radio station where he's doing a shift and he's reaching for a record to change on the turntable, and it takes the station off the air. Do you remember any mistake that stands out like that, where you were just devastated?
Well, I have taken more than one station off the air. Yes. I'm not saying I was the king of dead air, but I've had my share.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the most embarrassing ones. Jimmy, we don't have time for this podcast for me to tell you all the embarrassing moments, but as you know, I like to say I'm very imperfect. And when you had me in class at 8 a.m. or 10 a.m., I was probably already proved at that point that I was imperfect that day because I'd already made a mistake, just got it out of the way. So there was no pressure to try to be perfect the rest of the day. I was calling a football game, and I don't remember where, but I remember it was an important game. And we were on the air, and we're calling the game. Game's going great, good broadcast. We get down in the middle of the fourth quarter, and the mixer just dies.
Oh no.
Because I thought I had plugged it in.
Oh, no.
And I contend that I had plugged it in, but somewhere along the way, it had come unplugged.
Yeah.
So little beknownst to me, we were running on battery for like probably the entire game. And then at some point, the battery's going to die. So, I want to say I wasn't panicked, but let's be honest, I was panicked. So I went and I figured out very quickly what's going on here. Oh, if I plug it back in, reconnect, and so on.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure we missed a touchdown during that time. So it wasn't like we just missed a first down or a couple incomplete passes. So as broadcasters, you've done these, that sometimes you get behind or sometimes you get stuck in a commercial and you got to come back, you got to recap. So at the end of the game, the studio producer, what happened? It's like, well, your announcer and site producer is an idiot because let's put it this way. That wound was self-inflicted. It was my own darn fault. So yeah, I mean, we all make mistakes. I mean, that's the thing but the longer you do it, the more you learn and the less mistakes you make. But, at the end of the day, nobody died. And as I get older, one of the things I understand is that, what we do is important as broadcast journalists, in your case, as a podcaster or a member of the media. Yeah. What we do is important. We entertain people, we inform people, and hopefully at the end of the day, because of what we do, their lives are a little bit better. That's the goal. That's one of the reasons I got into journalism in the first place. Was I was always taught that if you can give people quality information, unbiased information, to the extent that any of us can present unbiased information, that people can make better choices because they're making objective choices based on good information. Mm-hmm. But I'm not doing brain surgery here. I'm not deciding whether people, can pay their mortgage or have food to eat or anything like that. So I think we should take pride in what we do. What we do is very important, but at the same time, when we make a mistake, we admit it, we apologize, and we move on. It's okay. So yeah, but yeah, that's you mentioned dead air. Yes, I have forced to cause dead air more than once in my career. Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, Jimmy. I appreciate it.
Well, we bring it all up here on JVK on air, man.
Yeah.
My dad, he was a singer, musician, and I can remember watching the Grammys or some kind of show that involved live music, and he was always a harsher critic in it, because he was a musician himself. So you as a broadcaster yourself, who are some broadcasters that you listen to and you're like, man, that guy's great or really good,
there are some really good folks out there. One of my favorites when it comes to play-by-play, I think that we're so, and I know that since this is a podcast, this is a worldwide audience on the internet, but you're sitting in Carmel, Indiana, I'm sitting in Franklin, Indiana, and for those who don't know the geography of Indiana, Carmel is just north of Indianapolis and Franklin's just south of Indianapolis. So we're kind of bookending the city. But anyone who wants to listen and just be wowed by skills, Mark Boyle, who does the Pacers, is just one of the best. I was very fortunate to be there last fall when we inducted Mark into the Indiana Broadcast Pioneers Hall of Fame, and it's long overdue. And he gave just a great speech without any notes or anything. He just went up there and talked for a little bit, and he was outstanding. But I've heard him do games by himself. I've heard him do games with a very good color commentator. I've heard him do games with a very bad color commentator, and he just shines. I mean, I feel like I'm at the game, and I don't think there's any better compliment for a play-by-play person than to say I felt like I was at the game, especially in terms of radio when you can't see anything. Mm-hmm. And I think Mark is just incredible at that. I think another one is Kevin Harlan. Most people know Kevin Harlan from what he does for CBS with the NFL and college basketball, and he does some NBA games and so on. But if you really want to hear Kevin shine, listen to him do Monday Night Football on the Westwood One Radio Network, because I think Kevin is good on television. I think he's great on radio. I really do. But I just listen. I think, hey, if I can be half as good as Kevin Harlan, I have a great career. I mean, he's just incredible. And you listen to these guys and you're right. I mean, we as professionals, we listen to the best, and then we're like, hey, I'm going to borrow that, or I'm going to make that my own, or I'm going to, he does that better than I do, so I'm going to try to get better. So it's always an iterative thing that I think I told you along the way as a sportscaster that, the first game is just shaking the rust off at the beginning of the season. I always tell my boss for what I do for Fox Sports Radio here in Indianapolis that doing football games, I say, please don't listen to the first half. The second half will be better than the first game. By the second game, we'll have remembered what we're doing, okay? We'll be good the second week. The first week, we'll be okay. But again, I'm my harshest critic, just like your father was. So from that standpoint, and on TV, there are a number of really, really talented broadcasters. I want to just do a shout out real quick to Ian Eagle, because when Ian first started doing NFL games, I thought, well, apparently anybody can get this job. We kind of joked that, well, the Colts must be bad this year. Ian's in Indianapolis type thing. Now that's not fair. And I was much younger at the time, and I like sarcasm, and some of those things. There's not a lot of grace and mercy. I'm working on that. I'm not good at it, but I'm working on it. To listen to him do the Final Four this past year, he's about as perfect as you could get. So I would be curious if I ever got a chance to talk to him to say, I would really like to ask you about the evolution from the beginning of his career when he was, I would say, maybe struggling a little bit, to where he is now, where he is just absolutely one of the best out there. And I really enjoy, and I've seen others do this too, that Jim Nantz didn't start out being Jim Nantz. Okay. I think Brian Anderson now is getting really, really good. Another guy that I didn't think was very good early on was Spiro Ditas, and I heard him do a couple of games lately, and I'm like, okay, he's working his tail off because he's pretty good now. So there are just so many good ones out there, and I think as professionals, and I always encourage students to do this, just because you hear it on the radio or you watch it on TV doesn't mean it's good. You've got to find out, but at the same time, you got to be honest about this. If somebody's better than you are, Mark Boyle's better than I'm ever going to be. I understand this. But that doesn't mean when I listen to him, I can't pick something here or there about, wow, his use of adjectives is really good, or he keeps up with the action. He's really good at skipping passes, so he's never behind, things like that I can take those lessons and apply it to what I do and make it better.
Shout out to Jason.
And I would say that on the news side, and this predates you because you're so young, but the legendary Christopher Glenn, who did the recap on CBS Radio Network of the day's events. I got to meet Christopher and have a conversation with him. I also got to meet Paul Harvey one day and have a conversation with him. And wow. And those are the guys that I always just looked up to and thought, I'm never going to be you, but if I could be somewhat like you, that would be cool.
Yeah.
So there's just so many people who do this so well. And then on the other side of this, I think we got a lot of people on radio and television these days who think they're a lot better than they really are, and they need to roll up their sleeves and work a little harder. So, yeah.
Have you ever asked anyone for their autograph?
Once.
Who was
And I don't know why I did it, because I don't do the autograph thing. I never really understood that. Okay. But maybe it's because everybody else was, and I was young, and I was just kind of, I don't know, wound up in line. And it was, but the legendary Peter Jennings at ABC News was the anchor there for years. I was on stage with him at the Edward R. Murrow Awards for back then it was RTNDA. It's now RTDNA, the Radio Television Digital News Association. I was on that board, and he was getting the Paul White Award that night. And I was somehow in my tuxedo that didn't fit very well, sitting in the front row on the dais. And Peter Jennings was sitting right behind me. So I had him sign my program. And again, I don't know why. I'm not even sure where it is. I know I still got it somewhere. But I always wanted to, and maybe this is the broadcast journalist in me, or and I think one of the keys to being a broadcast journalist is you got to be curious. I never wanted to tell anybody I knew the governor. I just wanted to know what's on the governor's mind. I really didn't need an autograph from Peter Jennings. I just wanted, I remember asking Paul Harvey. I probably should have gotten his autograph, but I wanted to know what was on Paul Harvey's mind. I wanted to pick his brain. I wanted to learn from him. I'm here at the altar. I want to learn. And I remember asking Paul Harvey. I said, so this, I was probably 25, 26 years old, maybe not even that. So I said, so this whole journalism thing, do we give the people what they want to know or what they need to know? I thought that was a really good question. He just kind of looked at me like I was an idiot. And I probably was, but then he gave me this awesome answer. And I can't do the Paul Harvey voice. I wish I could. But he said, you got to give them both. He said, it's like a sandwich. He said, if you don't give them what they want, they won't listen. But you got to get them to listen so you can give them what they need to know. That's your job as a journalist. And I'm like, oh, I've just been the wisdom of Paul Harvey, the wisdom of Paul Harvey. Here I am, and awesome. and so no, I've never been an autograph book guy, but I have been very much I'm not afraid to go up to people and shake their hand and say, I got a question. I really have, I guess over the years, now that I think about it, I've met a lot of people that I just revere because of their skills and what they've done. Yeah. But I've never been an autograph collector or really told people about it. I want to know what's on their mind, because that's how I think, that's how we grow. We learn.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I can recall one of the best perks of being a broadcaster at Carmel was we had hot dogs ready to go, popcorn machine in the press box. What's the best food spread that you've seen in your time?
Well, I got to tell you, I've called games at Carmel Stadium, and
go ahead.
That they do for a on-campus high school stadium.
Yeah,
they do have a very good spread. Now, I will also say this. My first game this year is at Ben Davis, and I don't think I've been to Ben Davis in like 10 years, but I remember theirs was really good too, and I think almost all of it was homemade. So I think you probably called games from Ben Davis. They got a pretty good spread as well. So
what happened? Okay, this is after a delay. We're gonna be welcoming Scott back. Are we back? Oh, no. Hold on. What happened? Goodness.
It was plugged in. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So I don't know what happened, but
we were talking about food. Yeah.
We were talking about dead air, and then it happened. So so where did I lose you? Where did you lose me?
We were talking about the glorious spot that is Carmel Football Stadium. Yeah.
Yeah, no, the food there has always been good, and the only bad experience I ever had there was we were doing a game in it was a season opener, high school season opener in the mid to late August. It's hot in Indiana at that time, and the great thing about the Carmel Press Box is, unlike a lot, it's air conditioned.
Yes.
That day, though, the air conditioning was not working, and I probably lost about 5 pounds. Just thank goodness it was radio, because on TV we would have been just melting. So I always loved coming to Carmel, and Jim Inskeep's such a great host as their athletic director, and so yeah. But the food was good there, and there's a little good food in a lot of press boxes, and there are some other press boxes where, quite frankly, yeah, not so good.
Yeah, you mentioned losing some weight with the sweat and the press box having no air conditioning. I know you value wearing a suit on most days. At least that's what I recall with you being my
Yep.
professor. How do you decide what goes with what? I mean, which accessories go with what, man?
Oh my. I would just say I do the best I can, and hopefully I
Right.
look decent. I have a wonderful wife who is not shy about saying, "Yeah, that looks good," or "No, don't wear that outside the house."
Okay.
I will say this, that in my semi-retirement, I have a very large and relatively useless wardrobe right now, because I don't wear ties very often. Although I did have um, 4 events, not last week, but the week before, and I actually wore a suit 4 days a week, and it was weird because I've gotten used to jeans and t-shirts and so on. But no, I always thought, and I know I've seen you dress up when you're calling games and things like that as well, that you got to play the part.
Oh yeah.
And I had a student, one of our better sports broadcasters, at one point asked me a question. He said, "Why do you always wear a suit when you call basketball games?" And I said, "Why don't you wear a suit the next time you call a basketball game, and then we'll have a conversation." And so he did. And he came back, and I said, "How'd it go?" And he said, "It's the best game I've ever done." He said, "I don't know why." And I said, "Because you look the part. I think if you look the part, you just perform a little better. And as you're representing yourself, your media outlet, you've seen this too, or you have announcers that come in and they got their baseball cap on backwards, and they're wearing gym shorts and things like that. And I can tell you, I know exactly how their broadcast is going to go. One of the things is that I really always tried to teach was, and this, is that, professionalism will always, always triumph, if you will, in terms of how you impress others on press row, in terms of how you perform yourself. I did a game last year, and one of the other broadcasters met me at the gate and said, "Do you have a roster?"
Yeah.
I said, "Yes, I do." He said, "Well, I'm going to need that." And I said, "Well, I'll get it for you once I get connected to the station and get ready to get on the air." "No, I need it now." "Well, then you should have thought about that before you got to the stadium." And I did help him, because I'm trying to be that guy. But you should have had that roster on Monday, not 6 o'clock on Friday night for a 7:30 kickoff. So I always thought that wearing a suit, wearing a tie, was as much for me as it was for others. I think you probably heard me say this, but I'm an introvert, and I know that's strange when you hear that, because, well, no, you're in front of class. I've never felt comfortable in front of audiences. So in some ways, the suit was to convince myself I belonged in front of the class. And if it rubbed off on the students that, hey, it's okay to dress up, it's okay to put on some Dockers and a collared shirt, and maybe people take you a little more seriously. So I was always trying to be an example for the students, but that was as much for me as it was anyone else, because it helped me just have some confidence that maybe I could be a general manager. Maybe I did know what I was doing in front of the classroom and so on. And as a sports broadcaster, I always just thought, you should look good if you're on television. And even in radio, you should, when you're dealing with coaches and athletic directors and administrators and players and so on, you got to look the part. You just absolutely do. And I know a lot of students, I've given away a lot of ties over the years because students don't have money. And, I've got 50, 60 ties in my closet right now. And I've, over the years, kind of donated some things just basically tried to help them out that, look, you can shop very effectively at the Goodwill. All right. You just can. You can get some nice stuff there, and it's going to cost you $5 for an outfit. So don't tell me you don't have any money. We're not shopping at Macy's here. We're shopping at Goodwill, but you can look good. So yeah. But I'm really struggling to build a new wardrobe now in semi-retirement because I don't need what I always wore. So my dry cleaner keeps texting me, "We miss you," because I don't go there very often. So yeah.
I'd love to go through the rotation and get one from the Scott Uecker collection. That would be good for me, to have one.
I'll see what I can find for you.
Awesome. I know when we were in school, I remember you saying you were a fan of The Big Bang Theory. What are some TV shows that you watch when you have time?
I do like The Big Bang Theory. So yeah, well, you're wearing your WKRP in Cincinnati T-shirt.
I did wear that for you.
Yeah. I loved WKRP in Cincinnati. So yeah.
News radio. What about that?
I am slightly less awkward than Les Nessman, but not by a whole lot. Actually met Richard Sanders, the actor, at a conference, and he was in character the entire time. It was great. And news radio, absolutely. Love the newsroom with was it Jeff Daniels? I think that's the star in that. I mean, there is so much to love about shows that fight for good journalism. I was watching a rerun of MASH the other night. I always thought that was one of the best written shows on television. I've really gotten into NCIS. I think that's another really well-written show. And I heard the other day that between all the franchises, they just aired their 1,000th episode. I thought that is just incredible.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I like more serious shows. But I do like comedies. There's a really old one out there. Probably I know it predates you, that McLean Stevenson starred in. He was a radio DJ called Hello Larry after he left MASH. So that was a good show back in the day. So yeah, I watch probably too much television, quite frankly. But I like the throwback shows. I just think there was something that was well done with those, and so yeah.
What about if we went through a playlist? What kind of music will we find from you?
Oh my gosh. I like jazz. I'm not going to lie about that. I mean, I ran a classical music and jazz radio station for 25 years. I like jazz. I like classical. I'm not as into that, but I always understood that we owed an awful lot to the Indianapolis community by doing WICR well, because classical music fans are as loyal as they come. But I like more of the upbeat jazz. I'm a Ripkins guy. I'm things like that. I'm a child of the 80s, so I love 80s music. And the Journey, the hair bands. I like country. I think George Strait's one of the best there's ever been. So I will listen to some George Strait.
All right.
I think there are some wonderful vocalists out there. I think Alicia Keys is incredible. I think Sade is just one of my favorites. So yeah. I mean, who doesn't like Garth Brooks? So, I think that, you work in radio long enough, Jimmy, and, you work in different formats, and And I will say this about your generation. I think your generation probably has the widest music taste in terms of genre of any generation. I mean, you look in, and I'll date myself here because I know not everybody has an iPod, but in the iPod generation, you look in the iPods at playlists, and there's stuff all over the place that you would never play back to back to back on a radio station for fear of being ostracized. I mean, you would never play a Alicia Keys into a George Strait, into a Garth Brooks coming out into Journey or Van Halen. I mean, you just would never do that. But I think I identify with this generation that I like what I like, and I'm not just a country guy, or I'm not just a pop guy or a R&B guy. I like what I like. So, yeah.
Favorite sound?
Favorite sound? Oh my goodness. I like laughter.
Yeah, that's almost universal. A lot of people are saying
Yeah,
laughter.
I like laughter. One of the things we do in radio, because it's an audio medium, and again, this is not a knock at our friends in television. I'm kind of jealous of them on certain days because I think they can tell really good stories, because video does, it's a picture says 1,000 words. But I think the words we choose and the sounds that we add can very much evoke emotions. One of our alumni got married a couple years ago, probably more than a couple years ago now. They all run together for me now. And he'd written his own vows. And he couldn't get through them. He broke down and just was tears of joy. And I told him afterwards, I said, that's the best writing I think you've ever done. And he said, you think so? And I said, hey, if you can evoke emotions in yourself, much less the audience, that's good writing. And so, yeah.
Best piece of advice you've received?
I think the best advice I've received, and don't get me wrong, I had a wonderful father who died way too young. I know you can say the same with Chooch. Okay, absolutely. And I remember when my dad was battling cancer, he liked to play golf. The last time we played golf, he just turned to me and kind of out of the blue, and he said, life's pretty simple. You can either take up space or you can make a difference. Because he was very black and white. He was a mathematician, and there were for him there were absolutes. And then he hit his tee shot and just walked off. And I don't know that I really understood that at that time. I was 25, 26 years old. But I think it was great advice, and that, the time we have on earth is limited. What are you going to do with it? You going to make a difference, or are you just going to take up space?
Right.
I think the other thing is that, there's a lot of wisdom in my Bible, and, I'm working my way through the New Testament this year. I'm going to try to read the whole New Testament. And there's a lot of wisdom in there too. And so much so that I know I'm not going to glean half of it. I'm going to go back and do it again next year. But, my daughter's getting married in July, and I'm writing my father the bride speech for the reception. And so I'm putting a little advice in there. And the biggest thing is just, in good times, praise God. In bad times, double down on your faith. That will never fail you. So, yeah, wisdom is really, really important. And I'm glad you asked that question.
Chooch would say I'm his best accomplishment. What does it mean to you to be a dad?
It's the most important role I'll ever play. Father and husband. I'm going to put that in there too. I'm sure Chooch would agree with me on that one. Yeah. And that no matter how many awards I win, and I've won too many, probably. I've been given way too many accolades in my retirement. I don't know if I deserve them or not, but I'm certainly appreciative. If I screw up my role as father and husband, what does it matter? Yeah. It's and again, I would also say, having to take care of my mother in her later years, that faith and family are the two most important things in life. And I have the ability to affect both of those positively because I can have faith, but at the same time, I can also be a good father. I can be a good husband. I can be a good son. I can be a good, life largely, Jimmy, is about relationships and it's not about money. You heard me say so many times that money will not solve all your problems. It'll solve a lot of them. You can focus on the rest. But, yeah, proud of my children, incredibly blessed with my wife. Hope I was a good son.
Let me see here. What else we got? Toughest part about being a teacher, would you say? Most challenging part?
All right. So the question was, the difficult thing about being a professor is the students. Now, let me say this. I have great relationships to this day with so many of our alumni, and I'm so blessed. As you know, I call them the Calm Alumni Mafia. And I had lunch where I had coffee yesterday with a member of the Alumni Mafia. I'm having lunch next week with a member of the Alumni Mafia. I've got another alum who was on my text yesterday saying, "Hey, can we grab lunch?" So, I really value those relationships. But to work with so many young and talented individuals that really bought into what we did, dare I say, trusted the process, because we put together a process that I think really works if the students bought into it. The ones that drove me crazy, though, were the ones that weren't willing to do the work, or they just, for some reason, didn't believe that they could be as good as we believe they could be as the faculty. And so that was a struggle, but we tried to win as many of those battles as we possibly could because it was worth it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to speak for myself, and I'm sure for a lot of other alums. Going to the University of Indianapolis was a dream come true for me because I was a physical therapy practice student for their exams. So I had gone there for years. And again, getting a chance to go there, getting a chance to take applied radio in your class, one of the best experiences of my life. Again, getting to take classes, be on WICR, and learn from that experience. So thanks for being my teacher, mentor, and a friend now. It's awesome, man.
Absolutely. Jimmy, I wish you the best, and you've got so much to give to your community. You've had your struggles, but you've always persevered. You've never made excuses, and I think you have so much to add to others as a mentor and as a friend who might not be as strong as you are. Thanks, and I know that you will. So again, going back to the advice I got from my dad, you can either take up space or make a difference. I know you've made a tremendous difference in the lives of others, but you're going to do it even more so in the future.
All right. And as far as for our meeting among Mafia members, among made men, where are we going to get our lunch? What's the best restaurant you're wanting right now?
Oh my goodness. You're a North Sider.
Yeah.
I like living on the South Side, but we don't have nearly the good restaurants that the North Side has. Well, I'm a fan of, it's a little bit, it's not in Carmel, but it's south, but it's on the northeast side. George's Neighborhood Grill is one of my favorite places. It really is.
Yeah.
Jim George is the owner, and he's my guy when it comes to things like that. I also love Maggiano's too. So
all right. We'll do the Big Ugly Challenge at Bub's Burgers. How about that? We'll do that.
Oh, I do like Bub's too. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know about the challenge. As I'm now semi-retired, I'm trying to drop a few pounds. So maybe not the challenge, but I do a Bub's Burger with you. Absolutely.
All right. Scott, is there anything else you want to add, sir, before we get out of here?
No, I really thank you for the opportunity to be here, and Hopefully you can edit some of this together, because I know we got those skills with what happened with the internet connection not being as stable as we would have liked. But as always, as a member of the COM alumni mafia, and at least to the best of my knowledge, I'm still the godfather. So therefore, anything you ever need, you just got to ask. That's what we do. It's right. As I said at my retirement, the mafia, I think, gets a deservedly so bad name. But the mafia is more than anything family that takes care of business, and they take care of each other. And that's what I always want our alumni base to be. And proud that you're part of our family.
Awesome. Folks, to hear this episode and all others with the program, make your way over to @JBKOnAir on all social media platforms, linktree.com/JBKOnAir for all things related to the show. And if you want to donate to the program, you can also do that with the link in the description. Until next time, have a great day and a better tomorrow.